Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Haley, and we are going to have a brief discussion about domain names. This is going to be something you don't want to dive right into. You don't want to quite jump into it. You want to give it some thought because this is going to be your online identity. You have to think about what it is that you're going to be selling and what it is that you want to brand. Are you going to be branding a product? Are you going to be branding a business? Are you going to be branding yourself? What you want to make sure you don't do is get a domain name, build this big business around it, and create some promotional material, and then find out down the road this really wasn't the direction you wanted to go. And now you're stuck with this domain name and you've built some authority on it, but it really isn't what you wish you had started with. So I'm going to give you some basic points to think about for a little time. Maybe you'll jump on one of those domain name sites and try out a few things and see which ones might work and create a little list of potential domain names that are available that you would be able to get if you wanted to, and then maybe narrow it down to a shorter list and then zero in on the one you want. And who knows, you might even get a couple of them just to play it safe. But ultimately, you want to build this authoritative internet presence on a domain name that reflects not only who you are today, but who you are next year and the years to come. Because building authority on the internet takes time. You're not going to do it in just in a few weeks or a couple months or even in a year. You can generate some good traffic in the short time, but to really develop authority and get the search engines to appreciate who you are and to develop this big net of other websites linking to your website takes time. So here's some things to consider in choosing a domain name. The first one is going to be the length of your domain name. Shorter is better, because it's more easily remembered and easier to spell, less chance of error when someone types it into a internet bar, and all these other reasons. There's so many reasons that short is better. You might even think about when people are going to use it in social media. Let's say, for instance, that you're going to write a tweet or put something on Facebook and you're going to mention the domain name. Lots of social media will take these long domains and shorten them using their own domain shorteners, URL shorteners. So, as an example, if you tweet something with a long URL and throw in a link, it will automatically change it to like t.me/something else. And then that'll get forwarded to the domain name. But if you can keep your short URLs, your short domains in your tweets, when people see that tweet, they're getting that element of branding in. So it's nice to have those short domain names for that. Also, you can also use your domain name as your own URL shortener. There's plenty of examples that I have of this. You'll see plenty of them along the way where you'll see drhaley.com/something real short. And then when you type that into the browser, it goes to something else. I'm using my own branding for Dr. Haley to take you to somewhere else because it's a relatively short, 7 or 8 characters in the domain name is probably the most you want to be at. Of course, if you're branding yourself and you have your full name, that could work too. This isn't a rule. You don't have to have a short domain name, but typically it's one of those things to think about when choosing a domain name. If you don't need a long one, if you can find a short one that works, that would probably be better. It's more easily remembered. You want something that people remember because as they're developing this web of links to your site, as an example, you created an authoritative article, or you're authoritative in this area of the industry. Someone might want to say, you want to check out so-and-so at such-and-such.com. And because it's easy to remember as they're creating their social media or their own websites or web pages, writing out about a certain topic that you happen to be an authority on, they're more likely, if it's easier to remember, refer to your website, building backlinks, which the search engines interpret as authority. So again, shorter, easy to remember. People can also, what was the name of that person? He's an expert in such and such. They can remember it easier. So Short and easy to remember. Also, you want it to be easy to spell. If someone has one of those tricky, is the I before E, let me see, is it after C, and they're trying to think, how do you spell this? Is there a UE or an EU in the middle? How is it spelled? Was it an S at the end? Is this a plural? I forget. Easier is better. So consider these things. Is it easy to spell? Sometimes companies realize, there's a little difficulty right here. Therefore, let's get the plural form, or let's get the misspelled form as well. And when someone types that in, let's have it forward to the proper domain name. It costs a little bit more. It's easier to have one domain with an easy to spell domain name. So just one of those things to keep in mind. Really, when you zero in on the domain name, look at it and study it and say, are there any common misspellings for this? Am I going to have to be concerned about that? The other thing is your domain name reflective of the website? What do I mean by that? Let's say that you were going to sell light bulbs. Lightbulbs.com would be very reflective of a site that sold light bulbs. Now, that's a win-win there if you're selling light bulbs. But what if down the road you choose to sell light fixtures and lamps and shades and accessories? Well, lightbulbs.com is really no longer reflective of the site. Lighting.com might be more reflective. So there's different things to think about, when you're asking yourself, does it not only describe my site as I envision it now, but if that vision changes, does this domain describe my website? Shovels.com. Okay, that'd be great if I only sold shovels, but what if I also wanted to sell, rakes and hedge clippers and things like that? GardenTools.com would be more reflective. But you know what? Hardware.com, I could sell light bulbs, lamp fixtures, shovels, garden tools, and, all these other things. So I can almost go with a little bit more of a general name, and that might be better for the long term, unless I know, I'm just a light bulb company, or I just make shovels, Again, think about this. Don't domain yourself into a corner. Don't pick a domain where you're just restricted and stuck unless you're certain that's all you're going to do. Because once you build authority, you've built authority, and that domain tells people what it is they can expect to find when they get there. Imagine someone does a Google search and they are typing lamp fixtures, and up comes lightbulbs.com and lighting.com. Which one do you think they're more likely to click on? They see that domain name in the search engine results. Think about these things. When people see your domain name in the search engine results, what's it going to tell them? Okay, what else? Brandable. I could spend a little time on this one. As far as it being brandable, your domain name being brandable, what do I mean by that? What is it that you are branding? Are you going to brand yourself? To me, that's a winning situation. If you can brand yourself, you might change. You might be an entrepreneur, you might be a coach, you might be a nutritionist, you might be a doctor, and you build all this authority, and if you change, well, if you branded yourself, you can change because you branded your domain name as some kind of expert anyway. And with all the authority you built, you can bend that website and steer it in a different direction, should you choose to. The other thing to consider about branding, it might be branding something that means nothing. Who would have thought that Google.com was brandable? Let's call it Google. What? Are you kidding me? What does Google mean? Well, now it means everything, but just a decade ago it was one of those, what? So you can, if you're going to do the marketing and have something that catches on and it's so different, you can come up with something that means completely nothing and probably get a nice, short, easy to remember domain name. Let's talk about the domain extensions. .com, .net, .org, .gov. Well, you're probably not going to be able to get a .gov, But what about those other ones? And now they have all these others, .co and .me and .us. Right. If you're in the United States, .com seems to be the way to go. Unless you're building some kind of organization, maybe a not-for-profit type site. Okay, .org is a great one. .net, I would have to have a good reason to get a .net, like, maybe it rhymes, like you bet .net, something that's just for whatever reason, it rhymes. I'll use it for that sake because it'll be more easy to remember. But most people are looking for a .com, so keep that in mind. Now, other extensions from other countries, for instance, .co, I think that is what, Colombia, or I don't know what it is, but .co is gaining this worldwide recognition. It's becoming a global extension. The point being is you might use those extensions creatively, but when they're other country extensions, chances are you're going to pay a little bit more for them per year. So keep that in mind. Be prepared for that if you're going to get some of those odd extensions. They're often shorter, as in 2 letters instead of 3 letters, so you have that benefit, and that has some monetary value again when it comes to URL shortening and stuff like that. So consider it, but for me, in the US, .com is the way to go. So what domain name is right for you? If you still don't know, consider branding yourself. The first thing I did is went and said, okay, Michael Haley, let's check michaelhaley.com. Well, it was taken because there's other Michael Haleys. Chances are there's other people with your name, unless you have one of those really different names, that was made from the first part of your mom and the second part of your dad's name, and and that wouldn't be so unique. Only your dad's name was created from the first part and second part of his parents, and and before you know it, you got this name that no one else has. Well, that should be pretty easy to secure and lock in. You might also consider your name, though, and say, well, how can I shorten it? For instance, Michael Haley was gone. Haley.com was gone. What about drhaley.com, drhaley.com? Well, that worked. So I got drhaley.com as one of my websites, one of my domain names. So shorten it if you can. And if you can't, maybe you have a short name that you want to lengthen. Maybe it's with a middle initial, Michael A. Haley, or Mr. Haley, or whatever the case is, or something at the end. Maybe you have initials. You're a medical doctor, michaelhaleymd.com or do.com or dc.com. You get the idea. You want to brand yourself. Find the shortest possible meaningful name that represents you. You might try your middle name. You might have a nickname for yourself. Either way, you're eventually branding yourself. So it works. Spend a good day or so thinking about it. Try one of those websites where you plug in some domain names, play with it, find one that works for you. And on the next video, I'll probably show you how to register those domains and get hosting if that's something that you need. Okay? This is the one thing that you're going to have to actually spend money on to create your online presence, your web presence, your domain name, which you want to make sure you get before someone else gets. Lock it in, own it, and keep it for all the years to come. All right. By the way, when it comes to names, just to play it safe, I got the names of all my kids. AnthonyHaley.com, GraceHaley.com, TylerHaley.com. My kids' names, I purchased their domains because I suspect if I waited, someone else will get them. And that way they can brand themselves and start branding at an early age. In fact, Anthony Haley, I actually didn't get AnthonyHaley.com. If I remember, I had to go AnthonyMHaley.com and use his middle initial because his name was already taken. So my kids' names, I locked them in so they have something that they can brand down the road. All right, things to think about, and I'll see you on the next video.